The wind screamed across the savanna like a wounded animal, carrying the scent of blood and smoke. Lira pressed her small body against the thornbush, heart hammering so hard she thought it would burst from her 6-year-old chest. Through the tangle of branches she saw it, a lioness, golden and enormous, dragging her father's broken body by the throat. She didn't scream. She had learned long ago that screaming brought teeth. That was the day the world ended for the second time in Lira's short life. The first time had been quieter, when her mother never came back from gathering roots near the river, taken by something with scales and jaws that left only a single handprint of blood on the mudbank. Now, only Lira and her older brother Kael remained of their little band of 7. Kael was 16 reigns old, already taller than most men would ever grow, but his eyes still carried the softness of a boy who had once believed the world was kind. He found her in the thornbush after the lioness left, pulled her out with hands that shook, and held her so tightly she could feel his ribs shuddering with silent sobs. "We go on," he whispered into her matted hair. "We always go on." And they did. This is their story, one small thread in the vast, fragile web of humanity that somehow refused to snap 4.7 million years ago, back when we were not yet Homo sapiens, but something earlier, something rawer. Australopithecus, some scientists would call us later. To us, names didn't matter. Survival did. They walked north because south smelled of death now. The sun baked the earth until it cracked like old skin. Every footstep raised puffs of dust that coated their tongues. Water was a memory that hurt to think about. On the third day without a drop, Lira's legs gave out. She fell face first into the dirt and refused to rise. Kael tried to carry her, but he was starving too, his arms trembled like reeds in wind. When he collapsed beside her, she thought this was how it ended, two small shapes drying into leather under an indifferent sky. Then came the crows. Black wings circled overhead, cawing. Kael knew what that meant. Something dead nearby. Something with water still inside it. He dragged himself up, pulled Lira onto his back though she was almost too heavy now, and staggered toward the sound. They found a young elephant, not yet full-grown, lying on its side with a broken tusk and a belly swollen with the last water it would ever drink. Kael's stone knife was dull, but hunger makes everything sharp. He cut into the stomach while Lira whimpered behind him. Warm, stinking liquid gushed out. He cupped his hands and drank first, because if it was poison, better him than her. It tasted of rotten iron and life. When he didn't die, he lifted Lira to drink. She gagged, then drank again, deeper. They lived. That night, curled together under a baobab whose trunk was wider than 10 men standing shoulder to shoulder, Kael told her the stories their mother used to tell, about the first mother who carried fire inside her heart, about how every human who ever lived was born from a single handful of brave ones who refused to lie down and die. Lira listened with her head on his chest, feeling the new strength returning to his heartbeat. Weeks turned to moons. They learned. Kael learned to read the sky. When the wind shifted south, rain was coming. When the termites flew at dusk, the dry season was breaking. Lira learned the language of plants, which leaves curled tight when poison lived inside them, which bitter roots could keep fever away when chewed to paste. They met others. First came Asha, a woman with one eye milky from an old hyena claw, carrying a baby tied to her chest with woven grass. Her mate had been trampled by buffalo 2 suns earlier. She looked at Kael with the exhausted eyes of someone who had stopped believing in tomorrow, then looked at Lira and something shifted. "I will walk with you," she said simply. Then came Tor, a giant of a boy, no more than 14 but already broader than Kael, with a laugh that boomed across the plains and a club made from an antelope thigh bone. His entire band had starved when the grass withered and the herds moved on. He joined because Kael shared the last strip of elephant meat without hesitation. 5 now. A family again. They learned to hunt together. Not the great beasts, that was suicide, but the small, clever ways. Tor would beat the grass with his club to drive hares into nets woven from Sansevieria fiber. Asha showed them how to dig pit traps lined with sharpened stakes for warthog. Lira, small and silent, became the best at finding ostrich eggs, buried treasures that could feed them for days. But the world never stopped testing them. The dry season returned fiercer than any living memory. Rivers turned to chains of cracked mud. Animals dropped where they stood, ribs heaving. The band watched vultures grow fat and lazy. One morning they woke to find Tor burning with fever. His skin was fire, his breath rattling. Asha pressed cool mud to his brow and sang the old songs, but the fever climbed higher. By nightfall he was delirious, thrashing so hard he nearly rolled into the embers of their tiny fire. Kael made the hardest decision of his life. "We leave him," he said, voice cracking. "If we stay, we all die here." Asha looked at him with that one good eye blazing. "Then you leave without me." Lira began to cry, silent, hopeless tears that cut tracks through the dust on her cheeks. Kael knelt beside Tor, pressed his forehead to his friend's burning one. "I'm sorry," he whispered. They walked away at dawn. Behind them, Asha's voice rose in the death song, thin and terrible across the empty land. 3 now. The grief sat heavy, a stone in each chest. They spoke little for many days. Then came the night of the burning sky. They had found a waterhole, miraculous, spring-fed, hidden in a grove of fever trees. While they drank, the sky exploded. A star fell, trailing fire, screaming down to earth with a roar that shook the ground. It struck far to the north, but the flash lit the world white for one heartbeat. Lira screamed and hid her face in Kael's legs. Asha's baby wailed. When their eyes cleared, they saw smoke rising in a great pillar against the moon. And something else. Figures. Dozens of them. Another band, larger than any they had ever seen, 20, 30 souls, moving toward the crash site like moths to flame. Kael felt fear crawl up his spine. Large bands meant strength, but also danger. Strangers killed strangers for water, for women, for the simple crime of existing. But they were desperate. And curious. They followed at a distance. What they found changed everything. The fallen star was not a star. It was stone from the sky, black glass that glittered sharper than any flint they had ever nabbed. The strangers were already breaking pieces away, exclaiming as edges cut skin with barely a touch. Kael's mind raced. Sharper tools meant better hunting. Better hunting meant more food. More food meant babies lived. Bands grew. He stepped forward into the firelight, hands empty, heart in his throat. The strangers raised spears. A woman stepped between them, tall, scarred, with gray in her hair though she could not have seen 40 rains. She studied Kael, then Asha carrying her child, then little Lira clinging to Kael's leg. She lowered her spear. "Trade," she asked in the clicking tongue all bands shared. Kael held up the ostrich eggshell canteen he carried, precious, beautiful, filled with clean water. The woman smiled for the first time. She took the canteen, drank, then handed Kael a fist-sized chunk of the sky stone. Just like that, everything changed. They called the gray-haired woman Mira. Her band had lost half its number to the drought, but they still had knowledge, ways of napping the black glass into blades so thin they could split a hair, ways of pressure-flaking arrowheads small enough for throwing spears. In return, Kael taught them the signs of underground water, the hidden roots that swelled with liquid when all else failed. Asha taught the women how to weave carrying nets that left hands free for weapons. Even Lira taught the children how to find the sweet pulp inside baobab fruit. 2 bands became one. They wintered together in a valley where a spring never failed. Babies were born, 3 that first year. Tor's memory lived in the name they gave one boy. Years passed like wind over grass. Kael grew into a man whose name would be spoken around fires for generations, though he never knew it. Asha's hair turned fully gray, but her one eye still saw everything. Lira, little Lira who once hid from lions in thorn bushes, became the fastest runner in the band, the one sent with messages when saber-tooths prowled too close. And one day, when Lira herself had a daughter with eyes the color of rain clouds, she stood on a hill at sunset with Kael, now bent and slow but still alive against all odds. Below them, the combined band numbered nearly 60 souls, children laughing, old ones telling stories, fires burning bright against the dark. "Do you remember," Lira asked, "when there were only 2 of us?" Kael smiled, teeth worn but eyes bright. "I remember when I thought the world had ended." He put his arm around her shoulders. "Look at them, little sister. Look what we made from almost nothing." The wind that once carried the scent of blood now carried laughter, cooking meat, the voices of children learning the names of stars. This is how we survived. Not because we were the strongest, or the fastest, or the cruelest. We survived because when the lion took one of us, another opened their arms. Because